The room was suffocating with silence. Courtroom 3 of Oakage County Courthouse, normally half empty and forgettable, was packed wall to wall. Tension hung so thick in the air it could have been sliced with a blade. Journalists scribbled notes, the jury looked frozen, and the judge's gavel rested on its block like a loaded gun waiting to fire. Everyone knew something unusual was about to unfold. At the defense table sat a man who had once commanded respect in every room he walked into. Walter Johnson, 55 years old, black, a retired history teacher, father, mentor, widower. His shoulders were squared, but his eyes betrayed the weight of betrayal. This wasn't just a court proceeding. It was an ambush disguised as justice. Across the aisle, Officer Ryan Callahan adjusted his tie, cool and composed, the faintest smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth like he already knew the verdict. He wore his badge like armor and his lies like perfume, invisible to some, choking to others. Then, the verdict was read. Guilty. The word dropped like a hammer. Walter didn't flinch, but something flickered in his eyes, disbelief, yes, but not surprise. The trap had been carefully laid, and now it had snapped shut. From a gallery, a woman stood. Her voice rang out, clear, commanding. Your Honor, I need to approach the bench. Every head turned. The judge frowned, but gestured her forward. What she whispered next made the color drain from his face. His gavel slammed down. We'll take a brief recess. The courtroom erupted in whispers. As she turned, her eyes locked onto Callahan's. Cold, focused, familiar. This isn't over, she said. And she meant it. What followed would unravel not just a case, but an entire city's illusion of justice. Under the exclusionary rule. But Judge Simmons, now visibly sweating and acutely aware of the gravity of the situation, hesitated. Mr. Reed, the court is aware of jurisdictional limitations, he said slowly. However, if the defense can establish that this evidence did not involve government-sanctioned surveillance, but rather personal investigative work done by a private citizen, albeit one with unusual qualifications, it may be admissible under exception. The room was still. Every person inside the courtroom understood something monumental was unfolding. Ms. Johnson, Judge Simmons continued. Proceed. But if I find your testimony veers outside the scope or introduces anything illegally obtained, I'll strike it and hold you in contempt. Is that clear? Yes, Your Honor, Maya said, her voice steady. Taylor stepped forward again. Ms. Johnson, did you obtain any audio recordings of Officer Callahan discussing this case? I did, Maya said. A cooperating witness inside Oakage County Jail recorded Officer Callahan admitting to planting drugs in my father's vehicle. The witness, Marcus Davis, was formerly employed by Callahan to intimidate and frame residents who refused to sell their properties. She handed over a labeled USB drive to the bailiff. This contains the full, unedited audio recording. I have a transcript as well. Reed objected again. We can't verify the chain of custody. It's already been verified, Taylor interrupted, emboldened now. The witness who provided this was vetted by the defense and has first-hand knowledge of Officer Callahan's misconduct. I also submit sworn affidavits from multiple residents who were targeted under similar circumstances. Judge Simmons hesitated, then nodded to the bailiff. Play the recording. The audio filled the courtroom, and Callahan's voice rang out, unmistakable. This is why I became a cop. These people think they're untouchable in their neighborhoods. All it takes is one little bag in the right place, and suddenly they're just another criminal nobody believes. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Callahan's face turned a deep crimson. Maya stood. Your Honor, the public defender's office was ill-equipped to mount a proper defense for my father. The local DA's office has been compromised. Judge Simmons, I ask I implore you not just as a daughter, but as someone sworn to protect this country to look at the facts. This isn't just a miscarriage of justice. It's a conspiracy involving law enforcement, local government, and private developers working together to displace black homeowners for profit. The silence in the courtroom was deafening. Then Taylor added, We also have documents from Preston Development listing Walter Johnson's house as a targeted acquisition, and evidence showing Officer Callahan received financial compensation from a shell company owned by Preston. Preston sprang from his seat. "This is slander." "Sit down, Mr. Preston," Judge Simmons ordered. "You'll have your chance to speak if I call for it." Simmons turned to Reed. "You've been remarkably quiet." Reed, now visibly shaken, simply said, "I wasn't aware of any of this." The judge called for recess. In the hallway, Reed cornered Preston. "You told me this was a clean case. What the hell is this?" Preston sneered. "It was, until she showed up." Unbeknownst to them, Harrison, back on duty thanks to a last-minute injunction from Wells, was recording their exchange through a hidden camera embedded in his lapel. Back inside the courtroom, when recess ended, Judge Simmons returned looking pale and agitated. "I'm vacating all charges against Mr. Walter Johnson, effective immediately," he said, voice tight. "This court will open a formal inquiry into the conduct of Officer Ryan Callahan, the Oak Ridge Police Department, and all parties implicated by today's testimony and evidence." Applause erupted. Walter, still in shock, turned to his daughter as tears welled in his eyes. "You did it," he whispered. Maya hugged him tightly. "We did it." Callahan was immediately taken into custody by internal affairs officers waiting just outside. Preston tried to leave quietly, but was intercepted by federal agents. Maya's final call that morning had been to a contact in the Department of Justice, sending them everything she had. Within 48 hours, headlines across the country covered the Oak Ridge scandal. CIA officer exposes corrupt police developer conspiracy targeting black homeowners. Maya's identity as a covert operative was now public knowledge. Her career at the CIA was effectively over, but she had saved her father and exposed a system that had victimized dozens. In the weeks that followed, Walter returned home to find his porch filled with letters, cards, and hand-drawn posters from his students. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson," one read. "You taught me how to fight for what's right." Preston was indicted on federal racketeering and conspiracy charges, and Callahan faced multiple counts of evidence tampering, civil rights violations, and obstruction of justice. Judge Simmons quietly resigned under pressure. Reed was disbarred. The Oak Ridge Police Department underwent a complete internal review, and Maya testified before Congress about corruption in local jurisdictions and the need for federal oversight. Months later, standing outside the newly reopened youth center, which had been renamed the Walter Johnson Center for Justice and Education, Maya looked at her father, now fully recovered, teaching a group of teens about constitutional rights. "You sure you're okay with all this attention?" she asked. Walter smiled. "As long as it helps someone else, I'm okay." And Maya, no longer an agent of the CIA, became something even more powerful, a citizen who refused to let justice die quietly. Would you like a follow-up story set 1 year after these events, perhaps focusing on Maya's new mission as a civilian advocate?